In this video, we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to show you how to paint Judge Dredd from Warlord Games. I'm really delighted that Goblin Gaming have asked me to paint this for them. You can check out and pre-order the new Dredd game from Warlord using the link in the description. If this is your first time here, then please consider subscribing, and don't forget to hit the bell to get notified of all my new videos. Let's get started on painting Dredd. So I want to talk about the model a little bit before we get going. So it's a really nice sculpt, and one of the things I'll say about this from Warlord is that actually there's very little cleanup. In fact, for the Judge model, the only thing I really had to clean up was around the base just to get that looking smooth. The rest of it, absolutely fine. Now the model is resin, so I would advise you to give it a quick wash in some warm soapy water and just give it a scrub with a toothbrush just to get any mould release off. Now, you don't want to put it in too hot a water because you'll melt it and you'll distort it, which you don't want. And through this video, I'm going to be using Citadel paints. What I will do though is in the description is I'll put an equivalency chart. So if you don't use Citadel, if you use Vallejo or if you use Army Painter, you'll be able to see the paints that you can use to replace the Citadel ones. So the first thing we're going to do is get cracking with the uniform. And for this, I'm going to use Kantor blue. So as you can see, I've primed it in black. And I've given it an all-over coat of Abaddon black, but you can use game colour black, whichever you've got, just to tie up the colour. So I'm going to start highlighting the uniform straight off the back of that with Kantor blue, which is kind of a dark blue. So all you really want to do is just kind of get into those areas which are going to capture some of the light. Now, in terms of the colour scheme, we're going to go for the scheme that Warlord have got on the box, but I'm not going to make it as comic book, so what that means, probably just going to use some more muted colours. Make sure that the green is a little more muted, and we'll see how that looks as we go through. So with the Kantor blue, you're just looking for those kind of highest areas, the bits that are going to catch the light. So you've got these folds in the fabric as well. Make sure you get all of those. And we've got the top of the uniform as well. In terms of the uniform itself, there's not a lot of areas that need highlighting because a lot of it will be like the pads and the gloves are kind of a greeny colour. So that's the, let's check on the arms there as well. So that's the first highlight. The next colour is just a slightly lighter colour blue. Now I've watered this down a bit. That's Alaitoc blue. And for this we want just get a really good point on your brush. And we're not going to use too much at all. Just brace yourself, and we're just going to give it that kind of brighter look there. Catching all those creases. Just to add a little bit of interest to the model to show that the light is catching it. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. So just work your way around the model, just giving it that little bit extra light highlight. And if it does look a bit bright to start with, don't worry, as the paint dries, it'll blend back down quite nicely. The important thing is that you've just got areas of differentiation which accentuate the shape of the uniform. Okay, so that's pretty much done. So I'll let that dry, just double check it, and we'll come back and we'll have a look at the green areas. On to the green we go then. And it's worth mentioning, if you haven't seen the starter box, it does actually come with two judges. You get this one and a rookie judge. So once you've got the paint on the palette, it probably does make sense to paint the other one at the same time. So for the green then, we're going to give that a base of Waagh flesh, which is a dark green. Or maybe it's a middle green. It's a desaturated green. And the reason for that is that we can keep the colours fairly muted, so that we're not going for that flat out comic book style. If you do want to go for that flat out comic book style, and you can do that using kind of a brighter green here. So I'm just going to paint this one glove to show you how it works. It's pretty straightforward. You don't need to watch me painting the rest of the green. And this is a base paint, so it goes on pretty good. You may need 2 coats to cover it, but you may get away with 1. In terms of how much I thin the paints, I thin them with a splash of water, not too much. I do use a wet palette, which does also then help in terms of thinning out the paints, making sure that the consistency is what it should be. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to finish the rest of the base for the green on this chap, on this judge, and I'm also going to do the rookie judge in the background as well, and that means then that I'm kind of doing them both at the same time. To start highlighting the green, you're going to use Warpstone Glow. Now, I'm not going to use any washes to do any shading. I'm just going to use paint here because it'll look just as good. So with the Warpstone Glow, you just want to put that over all the raised parts of the green padding. Take your time, work your way around the model. You're essentially just using this to highlight. So pop it on there. Where you've got an area like that, you can just pop it on the top half. On the boot here, you've got these fasteners, but you've also got the top of the boot, which is worth just highlighting, sort of edge highlighting that with the Warpstone Glow. So all you need to do is work your way around the model, making sure that you get all these raised areas. Now what you'll see is there's not a huge amount of difference between the Warpstone Glow and the war flesh underneath it. That's okay, because we're going to do one more highlight after we've done the Warpstone Glow that's really going to bring it all out and bring it all together. So go around the model, finish off all the bits that you think need to be Warpstone Glow, and we'll come back and we'll highlight it. Make sure when you've added that green highlight that you've gone over it as many times as you need to, just to make sure that it's solid. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some Moot green, which is kind of a more yellowy green. And I've dropped my brush size down here as well to a size 0 from a size 1. Now, you don't have to do that. The important thing is that you've got a good tip on the brush. And what you can see here is I'm just edge highlighting all the edges of these pads with a nice thin line of Moot green. Now where I can, I'm using the shape of the model, so running the brush along it, but I'm also just pulling it down in a straight line to get some of those highlights. So all you need to do with this is just work your way around, and you can see straight away that actually that's giving that green some more depth, some more shape, and it's starting to look quite good. So all I'm going to do is work my way around the model. When it comes to these little packs on his belt, what we want to do is going to highlight the bottom part and then highlight the top part around there like that as well. So that gives you that nice differentiation. We'll come in and we'll do the buckles and the buttons, etc. later on when we're actually working with metallics, but it's a nice way to just kind of get started. So again, work your way around the rest of the model with the Moot green, highlighting all those green areas, and we'll come back, I'll start to think about some of the gold parts. I'm going to make a start on the gold next, so I'm going to go for proper metallics, and I'm going to use Retributor armor to start with. So this is for all the kind of pads. Just fairly bright in terms of its colour. Going over black, you might need 2 coats when it dries. Don't forget you've also got the badge on the helmet, and you've got the kind of the badge here and the chain that attaches it as well. So I think we're just going to go for a bright gold, but a dirty bright gold. that makes any sort of sense. So rather than have a nice warm colour, we're going to have a dirty colour, but we'll still make sure it's fairly bright. So go around, get all the gold finished, and we'll come back and start to shade and highlight. Once that Retributor armour is dry, we're just going to give it a wash, just a brown wash. So I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade for this. And all I'm going to do is just work it all over the gold areas, and when that dries it'll have just dulled it down. And we can think about highlighting it then. So just be careful when you're going over areas you've already painted. So for example, when I'm doing this chain here, just keep it on the chain, because what you don't want to do is spill out onto that blue, because you'll just end up with some brown tide marks which don't look that great. So get the Agrax Earthshade on all the way around, and we'll come back and we'll start to highlight the gold. Once that brown wash is dry, we want to look to highlight the gold, and for this I'm going to use Liberator Gold, which is a really kind of bright gold. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight along the kind of the bottom half of these pads, or top half I should say, just where the light is going to catch. And what you'll notice is actually that's a really kind of subtle effect. When it dries you'll kind of get that brighter gold with the brown in the recesses. And then for the pad here, we're just going to follow that along. And then for these kind of square joints, we're just going to draw down like that. Really straightforward highlighting, not too complicated. And for the badge, we're just going to pick out some of those links and chains, and same for the badge on the belt buckle there, which hasn't quite got as much detail as the other parts, but that's okay because we can work around that quite easily. And don't forget, you've also got the badge on the head there as well. So that's the gold highlighting done. Next thing we'll do is the silver metallics. So for the metallics, we're going to use Lead Belcher. This is a nice base. So in terms of what we're going to paint with Lead Belcher, we've got the weapon, which you can just work your way around. Just being careful when you come to those parts you've already painted. We've also then got some little bits. We've got the zip here, so just do the zipper there, and we've also got the kind of handle for the baton, so we can give that a bit of a silver colour as well. Excuse me when I go hurtling away from the camera. Okay, so just work your way around, get that weapon finished in the silver, and we'll come back and we'll shade and highlight it. Shading that silver is really easy as well. Just use a little bit of Nuln Oil. You don't want too much because you don't want to flood the part. So just work it all around. Simple, just like that, and any other bits. And then let that dry before we think about highlighting it. I'm going to get the red started with some Mephiston red. Now, don't worry about being hugely tidy for this part, because we will go back in and tidy up some of the black if we need to. And you're probably going to need 2 coats of the Mephiston red as well. Because what we'll do is the helmet and the visor are kind of harder materials than the uniform, for example. So we just want to make sure that they've got appropriate shine on them. So I'm going to finish off the rest of this on the other side, and we'll come back and we'll highlight the red. The red highlighting is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to start off with some Evil Sunz Scarlet. We're just going to pull this towards the kind of front of the bits we've already done in Mephiston red. You can see there that actually the Evil Sunz Scarlet is a much brighter red. So So just want to work that round, and then once you've done that, obviously I'll go back to the other side. Just want to give it a little edge highlight using Wild Rider Red. So this is fairly straightforward. Water on the brush. Probably a bit too much on the brush there, so make sure there's not too much on your brush, and you just want to move that down the side there and just highlighting up where the visor is, just along there. So there we are. I'm going to do the other side. We'll come back and we'll do the flesh, the visor, and then the base, and we'll be done. So on this Judge model, we haven't got too much flesh, so I'm just going to take some Cadian flesh tone. Just going to paint in around the face here. Just want to cover all of it. Now this is going directly over black, so what you'll see is that you'll probably need to do a couple of coats. So just take your time and work it in there. Make sure you don't get it on parts you've already painted. If you get some on the visor, that's okay, because we're going to go and do that last off. So let that dry and go in and give it another coat, and then we'll have a look at shading it. Once you're happy with that second coat, just take some Reikland Flesh Shade. You don't need much at all, and just paint that all over what you've already painted with the Cadian flesh tone, and that'll give you some nice definition for us to go in and highlight. When that Reikland Flesh Shade is dry, just take a little bit of Kislev Flesh and just work this on the kind of the exposed areas. So you're not going to use very much at all. In fact, that's it, done. So that's your Judge's skin ready. So the last thing we need to do, apart from the base, which I will show you how to do as part of the video, is just highlight some of the black. And I think actually looking at it now, I'm going to make that cord the same colour as the red on the helmet. Okay, so I'll get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll do the black and the helmet and the visor. When we're painting the black, the first thing you need to do is just re-establish it anywhere. So on the visor or the helmet and the baton. So we're going to put some highlights on. So for the baton, that's just going to be as simple as just moving some grey down there. So this is a dark grey. The colour I'm using is Mechanica Standard Grey. You can also use this on the helmet, just following the kind of the angle. You've got that hard edge there, and then you've got this kind of rounded area there on the helmet. So that's nice and straightforward. Once you've done that, you need to put it on the visor. So I'll just give my brush a quick swill off. And on the visor, we're just going to turn the model upside down and just edge highlight the bottom of the visor there. So take your time, make sure you don't get only on the red. If you do, you can always go in and re-establish it. So that's on the visor there. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to just give it a bit of a sharper highlight. So we're going to use not Administratum Grey, so we're going to use Dawnstone. So you don't want too much on your brush at all for this. And for the baton, just want to move it along that top edge there. And the same for the helmet, just on the sharpest parts. So just on there. And there, and maybe you want to put a little bit on the reflection through there, and also on the visor, just a little bit underneath there to give it that hard plastic shine. So yeah, that's the model finished. I'll show you how to do the base and kind of like a little concrete effect, and then the model's done. So for the base, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give it like a false concrete look. So we're going to start with that black undercoat. And I'm going to take a really old dry brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stab it randomly across the base, so you start to kind of build up this kind of effect, stippling on a dark grey. So I'm doing the Mechanica Standard Grey because it's still on my palette from when I used it earlier. And just be really careful you don't get any of this on the model. And you know, you can use flock on the base if if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. So that's the first colour, a little bit more in there. And then I'm going to take the Dawnstone, same dry brush, I'm just going to stab away. Again, be careful not to get it on parts of the model that you painted. That's done, just looks like a really faux bit of concrete. So that's the model done. We'll pop him on the turntable so we can see what he looks like all the way around, and that is job done. So there we have it, a really easy and straightforward way to paint Judge Dredd. Thanks for watching, I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, then please leave a like and a comment down below. Consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do want to support the channel, then you can use the links in the description. There's no additional cost to you, but it does help me out in terms of getting models, paints and more supplies. Thanks again for watching, I'll catch you next time.